Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Severance Season 1, Episode 7, Defiant Jazz is the episode I'm going to be talking about. I will be breaking down. I will be spoiling. So if you have not watched the show Severance, if you have not watched Episode 7, and don't want to be spoiled, I suggest skipping this show, this episode, and doing so. And if you don't mind, maybe this is how you want to consume it. You know, that's fine too. But I want you to be warned that there are going to be spoilers because I talk about every nook and cranny of every single episode, and I talk about things because it's a very mysterious show. There's a lot of unanswered questions. Sometimes we get answers here and there, trickle in. And, you know, I just want to make sure. I want to make sure you're not getting sideswiped, blindsided by a lot of spoilers, which this show is. So let's get it started, shall we, with Season 1, Episode 7, Defiant Jazz. As we left in the last episode, Mark, in the middle of the night, heads to the college, the Gans College, to meet with Reghabi, the person who was trying to call Petey on his cell phone, and Mark, his outie, trying to get more answers, trying to understand more about what's going on. He is at the college. He meets with Reghabi, trying to find out who she is. She asks him to follow her, and they go down deep into the Gans College, which seems to be abandoned. It could just be off time, maybe it's during winter break or whatever, or it could just be part of the college that is shut down, but it does seem to be a bit abandoned, and they're going down deep into the depths of Gans College, which, you know, similarly to Lumon, the whole Severance aspect of Lumon is down underground, so maybe there's just some similarities with that. But Mark finds out that she is the one who installed Mark's chip. She also mentions that Petey wouldn't be dead if he actually followed the post-op protocol and didn't just run away from things when he got sick. Very similar type of an issue, you know, similarities to Mark as him running away from his wife dying, getting severed instead of dealing with the actual trauma of losing his wife. So in some ways, Mark and Petey have that in common, running away from situations. But we find out that Reghabi installed Mark's chip, and she's the only one that can deactivate it, supposedly. But we go, and they go to a room that's full of potential medical equipment, and they're talking about Mark's innie, and she's explaining to Mark just kind of clarifying the reality that is having yourself split into two people, and commenting on the reality of the innies. So let's play that clip real quick.
Maybe I don't want it deactivated.
Right. Well, maybe your innie does. You wonder what he thinks about all this, don't you? You wonder if he's happy. I hate that term, innie. So infantilizing. Then again, you've been severed for 2 years, right? So your innie really is still just a baby.
My innie lives his own life, and as a result, I get to live mine.
But he only exists because of you. And for all intents and purposes, he is you. Do you really think he's different down there? Combs his hair differently, laughs at different jokes. Maybe he loves it, you're right. But maybe he doesn't. Maybe he dreams every day about clawing his way to the surface. But you wouldn't know. You'll never know. You brought him into this world without his permission, based on your own desire for emotional convenience.
I'm not a bad person.
I think you want to do what's right. Both of you.
Kind of an interesting statement. One, referring to his innie having only been there for 2 years as being just a baby, which is clear, which is kind of interesting, kind of telling that, one, that people who are severed are probably severed for a lot longer than 2 years. The people that have experienced it, that there are people that, and it's been a long enough to where there are people who have experienced it and are probably in the different stages of being severed in a way that they are more mature. At least that version of them is more mature, which I mentioned earlier on in the series, how Dylan and also Helly have more of an adolescent type of a humor to things when it comes to being severed within their innies in general, kind of goofing off, not really taking things seriously, and how that might be in reference to how long they've been severed, since they are in a lot of ways reborn in a way. Even the imagery of how they are reborn into Lumon as severed beings laying on that table, the imagery of that top-down shot of them, of Helly laying on the table as the speaker box, which is almost like the umbilical cord connecting them to their first pieces of informational nutrition. So kind of interesting. Also telling how that the your innie isn't so much different than you, and also how maybe they're both simultaneously trying to understand what's going on. Which I don't know how Reghabi would know, but clearly we've seen Mark's innie reading Rickon's book, trying to find out what's going on at Lumon, trying to recruit the other people that are not only within his department, but the people in O&D to try and team up to find out and investigate what they're actually doing there, what Lumon is all about. And then also at the same time, simultaneously, Mark's outie falling victim to information given by Petey and kind of getting into his own rabbit hole on the outside. So very interesting. And just as she says that, Graner shows up, but shows up like down the hallway so he can see Mark but can't see Reghabi, but knows that Mark's talking to somebody and he's trying to convince Mark, like, hey, we work together. But just as he does that, Reghabi hits him with a baseball bat. She ends up killing Graner. Crazy. Like, that kind of tells you the stakes that they are at as far as the resistance is concerned, with people trying to get out of Lumon to try and become unsevered, to reintegrate. That killing Graner is the level that they will go to push this kind of to get people out. So kind of shows the stakes that they're at, where you didn't really know, right? How casual is it? How is it like? Is it more of just just experimenting to see if they can do it, or is it a legitimate movement where real things are happening? Either way, she kills him. She's like, tells Mark what to do. Obviously, Mark's stunned. Mark is traumatized from this. She gives Mark Graner's security card. He's like, here, take this, smuggle this in. When you go to work, your innie will know what to do. Which I don't know if she has access to Lumon in any way, to maybe she has access to the security cameras to know that Mark's innie is also, making steps to find out what is going on there. Or maybe it's just something where she's experienced enough people whose outies are trying to figure things out that simultaneously she knows that their innies are doing the same thing. Maybe it's just something where she just has experience and knows. Either way, she gives him the card to smuggle in. She tells him to, when he gets home, get rid of your clothes, get rid of the evidence. She'll take care of it. She'll take care of Petey's phone, all that stuff. So when Mark gets home, obviously, when he left, Alexa was still in bed when he left after their date. But he gets home, puts his clothes in the trash, into a trash bag, ties it up, puts it under the cabinet, and then Alexa comes into the kitchen. She's been awake for an hour. Mark trying to play it off like he just got up in the middle of the night, but also not really wanting to divulge what he's been doing. Tells her that he went on a drive because he's still not really over his wife, which is true. They did talk about his wife on their date. He opened up about it, and he is clearly still not over it. He has not done anything to really – that is why he got severed, to kind of run away from that trauma of losing his wife. But Alexa trying to just be supportive, asking if she should go, asking if he's okay. Mark obviously not okay for not only the reasons that of him losing his wife, but also the fact that he just saw somebody he supposedly worked with. We had no idea who Graner was, but he saw somebody get murdered right in front of him. And it's a crazy thing, and he's not okay, and he definitely would like her to go. Not only for his well-being, but also for her safety, because who knows? So she leaves. Next morning, Mark wakes up. He sees the security card on the counter, gets ready for work, and goes and throws the trash out, throws his clothes out. Can't really fit it in the trash can. Meanwhile, Selvig comes out and sees him trying to smash his trash can down. And she is so on point with observing everything Mark does on the outside. She's like, usually you bring the trash out in the early evenings, the night before. You're not really doing it now. So she notices that Mark's routine is off in some way. Doesn't really lead to anything, but she does notice it. And she invites Mark over. Like Mark says, didn't really sleep well, whatever. Mark's continued issues of not really doing well because of everything going on and not dealing with his wife's death. And Selvig being how just kind of she's such a different person, definitely more caring, definitely a little bit eccentric, invites him like to drink lavender tea with her sometime. And she makes a comment because it's snowing. The Jack Frost needs some new dandruff shampoo. Like a goofy person, which is the complete opposite of the person she is while she's being Cobel, while she is within Lumon. So it's such a weird contrast to see that. Meanwhile, cut back to inside Lumon. Milchick is showed up early. He's testing this new door that shuts in the MDR department because they've been colluding with the O&D department. Putting his badge in, making sure it opens and closes from both sides. Probably one to just test and make sure, but also probably to make sure that he can get in and out when he wants to, because I would imagine that a business that is so controlling of their mice in a maze that he is on some level concerned with him becoming one of the mice as well. I would imagine. But he's testing the door. He goes into the bathroom where Dylan said he hid that ideograph card. He finds it behind one of the toilets. He is there when Dylan shows up. Actually, he takes the card after finding it in the bathroom, returns it to Burt, goes to the O&D department, returns it to Burt, and they have a little back and forth. Final preparations for something are going to be done. There's like an event potentially later. Something's going to happen. And we find out that Burt had been in the break room the previous day. clearly being punished for the fact that they were, they got busted inside that back room of O&D with the MDR department, and he had been punished along with Mark. So presumably the break room has multiple rooms, because Mark had been punished as well, which we find out when Mark shows up later on. But we found out that Burt had been punished the day before. So Milchick goes back to the elevator and greets Dylan as Dylan shows up. Dylan's first question, obviously, the last time his innie was awake was he was awakened inside of his closet. He got to see his son. The first time his innie has ever experienced a reality that was not inside Lumon. He got to see all of his hypothesizing and fantasies about what his outie does and what his life is like on the outside. He got some answers finally. He got to see the clothes that were in his closet. He got to see this kid that he assumes is his son because he said daddy. So his first question is trying to find out if that was his son. And of course, Milchick's not going to answer it. Dylan asks what happened. Milchick explains that it's the procedure's called an overtime contingency, where they're able to wake people up if necessary outside. And he tells Dylan to not mention OTC, the overtime contingency, to the other people. Obviously, he doesn't want any of that to get out. And as they approach the door, the new door to the MDR department, Milchick tries to appease and silence Dylan by telling him that he'll give him some special perks, potentially give him some special perks for keeping quiet, for being on his team. Like, Milchick is really trying to do some kind of just trying to calm everybody down, because everybody, all of the innies are on a path. There is some momentum going. And it's not like momentum at a regular job where they have the experience of going home. It is like their innies were at O&D planning to find out what Lumon's all about, to find out what's going on, what all the different departments are doing. They got busted. Burt and Mark, break room. Dylan assumingly went home for the day, woken up for a moment to be interrogated by Milchick in his closet, and then woke up again at work. So there's no break. There's no cool down for the innies, right? When they start to form, when they start to unionize in a lot of ways, it is very important for Milchick and the people in charge to dampen that momentum as quickly as possible. Let's take a little break from the Ray Taylor Show to promote my live art streams. That's right, I am an artist as well as a podcaster, and I paint live every Thursday at 4:20 Pacific time. Head on over, the best place ever for streaming, youtube.com/inspired disorder. That's right, every Thursday at 4:20, you can watch me paint the many faces. Every week, I paint 7 new faces of abstract portraits, ink on paper, and you can watch that happen. You can hang out with me while I listen to a classic episode from one of my favorite podcasts. Head on over to youtube.com/inspired disorder and check it out. Say hi, let's hang out, let's have some fun, and let's paint some faces. Now let's get back to the show. So cut to Mark is at the locker room about to go into the elevator once again, looking at the card, clearly nervous about smuggling this security card in through the elevator. And of course, Milchick is there when Mark arrives. Mark's innie shows up and asks if he's going back, kind of alludes to going back to the break room. And Milchick's like, "No, we're not. We're doing something different." And he's escorts Mark to his desk. Obviously, seeing the new door on the way to his desk. Mark says hello to the whole crew who's already there. Helly and Irving and Dylan are already there. Dylan obviously not very happy. Milchick goes and serves Mark coffee. Right, it's very, very different Milchick currently, trying to deal with everything. And Milchick leaves, and as Milchick leaves, he calls Cobel. Because Graner is a no-show. He did not show up. And she hasn't shown up yet either. Cut to the reason why Cobel hasn't shown up yet, because she is showing Devon, Mark's sister, how to breastfeed her new child. She is the new lactation specialist for Devon and Rickon. And that is where Selvig is at, giving her a little demo, showing her how to do it. Cut to them bonding, again, Selvig being a funny, joyful, warm-hearted person, mentioning the shop. Like Devon's like, I don't want to keep you from work and keep you from going to your shop. And Selvig is like, don't worry about it. Tells her like a funny story or whatever. And then Devon opens up to Selvig about her park experience the previous day, where her retreat neighbor didn't recognize her. And she had the same theory that I hypothesized in the last episode, which was that maybe the severed procedure isn't only used for Lumon, isn't only used for people going into work, that maybe it is also used for people who are giving birth. So even though I have seen this show, I am not recalling things that I know are going to happen. I am trying to just hypothesize based on what I've seen up to this point and dissecting it. Obviously, I know kind of where this season's going, but I'm making a point not to spoil anything. And I completely forgot that she even had I hypothesized that as well. I thought I was having a completely original thought in the last episode, based on just the fact that we're in a world where that technology exists, and what are the other applications for that technology? Obviously, if you have money and you're connected, like this woman's husband is, being a politician who's pro-severed, the severed procedure, why wouldn't you use it? And it would also make sense why she didn't recognize anything. But of course, Selvig just dismisses it. And she asks Devon how Mark's doing with, his wife passing. She even asks if he ever sees her, thinks he sees her anywhere. Obviously, poking around, interesting questions. At least Devon kind of raises an eyebrow. It seemed like an interesting question. Cut to Irving back in Lumon. Irving approaching Mark, talking about why aren't the soap dispensers labeled in the bathroom. Dylan obviously telling that's knowing how ridiculous. Why would they label the soap in the bathroom? What else would it be, Irving? But of course, Irving only brings it up in order to formulate some excuse for him to go to see Burt one more time in O&D, because he's concerned. He doesn't know what happened to Burt after they got busted by Milchick. And Irving, being Irving, always by the book, having to come up with some ridiculous excuse. But a legitimate excuse, at least in his mind, to go see Burt. But Mark's wise to what he's trying to do. Dylan's angry. It's like, this wouldn't have happened if you didn't, start all this stuff. If you didn't start mingling the departments, Irving, and bringing us in there, none of this would be happening. Milchick shows up with a cart that has a record player on it and some vinyl. And apparently this is the music dance experience. the prize for getting 75% of the incentive for getting 75% of the work done. It's a 5-minute experience, and of course, Irving, being as by the book as possible, brings up that Helly isn't actually 75%; she's only 73%. She's like, "Come on, Irving!" Like Irving, such a stickler for every detail, having to be by the book. But Milchick is in this mode of trying to get everybody trying to pacify everybody in every way possible. And Helly, because she has achieved this milestone, is able to choose one genre of music and one instrument. She chooses the maraca, and of course, as the title of the show, she chooses Defiant Jazz, in which Milchick, puts it on. They start dancing. Everybody but Dylan starts dancing. Even Mark starts to groove a little bit. Irving a little bit. They turn the lights on to like flash different colors. It's about as cheesy of a corporate type of a music dance experience as you would expect. And while dancing, Mark notices the security card in his pocket. Milchick starts dancing behind Dylan. Dylan, seeing Milchick in the reflection of his screen, clearly pissed, very angry. No answers were given. And the way Milchick is dancing behind Dylan is almost trying to provoke. Right? It's like, if you're ever in that situation where people are like having fun and you are not in the mood to have fun and they're trying to rub the fun in your face, it only makes you have less fun. And it gets to a point where Dylan attacks Milchick. He stands up, pushes him back into the cart. They fall over, and then he bites Milchick's arm. Everybody pulls Dylan off, and there's a moment we see Dylan, who's clearly just had enough, right? Obviously. Attacked Milchick. He bit him. Milchick's wearing this like long sleeve sweatshirt, white, blood soaked through because he broke the skin. And let's play this clip real quick.
He broke the skin. He needs a full tetanus toxoid panel.
You've done it now, Dylan. I'm reporting this to Miss Cobel.
Yeah, you want to go see her together?
The music dance experience is officially canceled.
The look in Milchick's face when Dylan kind of stands up to him like, "Oh, you want to go talk to Cobel together?" Like you can see the kind of the fear that Milchick is starting to have. Right? And when Dylan took him down, he was like, "What's my son's name?" Like it's clearly like that Milchick messed up. Right? Telling his kid to just count to 1,000 was clearly not the best way to keep that kid out of that situation. And the unintended ramifications of Dylan finding out that he has a son on the outside, a guy who has done nothing but fantasize about what his reality is on the outside, fantasize about what the numbers are about. His brain is creatively coming up with all of the answers that they're to the giant blank spot that is his Audi's existence, that is the existence outside of Severance. And now he's gotten one of the answers, and it's just the little bit he needed. And he's like, he's done. He's fed up with it, as most people are starting to become fed up with. So Mark asks what's wrong, obviously. And Dylan comes clean, tells him, they can wake you up outside. I saw my son. So now I have to come into this place every day. Not come into this place. I have to exist in this place for the rest of my existence as this version of myself, knowing that I have a child on the outside that I will never get to experience. And Helly is all about this. She's like, well, we need to figure out how to wake ourselves up outside. Mark lets them know that he has the security card. Like, things are kind of falling into place at this point, right? Helly's been trying to get out of this situation from the start. Mark is starting to wake up to the fact that the situation inside Lumon isn't good. Dylan is now not only like okay with the other department, doesn't think that they're going to kill him, but also has this added incentive, more than a finger trap. He has this incentive to know more about his son and his life outside. And then after Mark shows, they ask, how does your Audi get Graner's security card? Now, of course, they don't know what happened to Graner yet. They don't know any about that. It's just it's just one of those, they don't know. Mark, after being in the break room, went home for the day. Elevator door closed, elevator door open, and now he's got this card in his pocket. So Helly, it's like, we need to go on a field trip. Irving is scared. He's tentative. He's not really, Irving's Irving, right? He's also kind of waking up with this bond to Burt. He's definitely more concerned with Burt than anything. But Burt has opened up Irving in a way, not only just in a way that reinterprets the Bible, which is Egan's handbook, in quoting the older versions of it, in trying to have him interpret it in more of an open type of a way instead of a literal type of a way. But he's still scared. Dylan decides he's going to stay back in the MDR department while the other three go. Now that there's this door, they have this card so they can get out of this door. And as soon as they get out the door, Irving books it to go check on Burt, to go see what happened to Burt, because that's all he cares about. And so Helly and Mark go. Mark knows where the security room is. Petey told him during a fire that he found it once and showed him where it was, and which is interesting. Like, it's an interesting way for the show to tell you. I mean, it's kind of lazy. Like, they should have, if I were to go back and tell these writers just a small way for them to explain why Mark knows where the security room is to have it on the map that he is drawing. Right? Like, in that moment, Helly and Mark, when they got out, pull out this map, and he's like, here it is. This is where Petey told us it's past the perpetuity wing. This is where that security thing is. And for them to use the map that's been a part of the story. But instead of using the map, which would have made sense, would have added to the, plot-wise, it would have made the map useful. It's just, he just happens to know because Petey told him, which is fine. It would have made more sense, and it would have made the map useful. Because at this point, the map is nothing. The map is just, what are they working on the map for? They don't seem to be using it. But either way, Helly and Mark are off to go find the security room. They find it. They open it up, just a whole wall of monitors for all the different cameras that are everywhere, all the hallway cameras, elevator cameras, all of that. Then another part of the room is like all of the different, everyone who's severed has their own little bay. It's like a little drive bay that has like a little dial on it, has their number, I would imagine has their employee number and their name on it. And there's probably, I would say, at least 100 people severed. Just kind of based on, you know, just a rough count of what you can see. A guesstimate is that there's probably about 100 people severed. And so far we've seen maybe 20. We've seen maybe, you know, 20 to 25% of the total amount of people that are severed and available to be controlled within this security room. But very interesting. Mark's looking around. Helly finds an operational book and is flipping through it to find the OTC instructions. Meanwhile, Cobel shows up. One of the monitors shows that Cobel is descending into Lumon, that she showed up for work. Mark runs over to confirm on the video camera, which adds some urgency. Helly finds the page that lists the procedure for operating the overtime thing. What is it called? Overtime contingency, the OTC. She rips the page out and they leave. Cut to Cobel walking down the hallways, and she's met by the woman who communicates with the board. I forget her name. But she is there with her little earpiece in, and she says the board is there with her. They want to talk to her. Cobel finds out that Graner is dead. And it's an interesting back and forth. Let's play that clip.
Harmony, I was looking for you.
Oh, no,
I have the board here.
right now.
Doug Graner is dead.
What?
The board finds this deeply troubling. The board wants to know if you knew he was missing and if you've spoken to the police.
Whoever killed Mr. Graner is probably the same person who reintegrated Peter Kilmer.
The board reminds you that reintegration has
Reintegration happened, and I have the data to prove it. And I would be happy to share my findings in person without intermediaries.
The board agrees. And we'll be available to meet with you at the Egan Family Gala next week to discuss this further. Details to come.
I look forward to receiving them.
So as shit is hitting the fan, maybe Cobel had been waiting to, bring the board all of the information on, the reintegration, because the board keeps saying it's not possible. Obviously it is. There's this event that's supposed to be happening next week, the Egan Gala event. So that's going to be coming up, where she's going to be talking with the board in person, which is interesting as well. So we'll see what happens with that. But it's clearly like, a lot of things are going to be happening. And it's an opportunity, I guess, for Cobel to potentially move up. I don't know. Either way, interesting back and forth. One of the few times where she doesn't communicate with a quote from the Egan handbook. Either way, cut to Irving, makes it to the O&D department, and there's a party going on. But back to Dylan. Dylan is there with Mark and Helly as they got back, and he's criticizing how lax the security is, how there was nobody in the security room. Helly mentions that maybe the fact that they pretend that the idea of people are watching is what is the most, effective way to keep them in line. Let's take a little break from the show to promote The Many Faces. That's right, I am also an artist. I do ink paintings on paper of abstract faces. A new face, a new painting gets released every single day over at inspireddisorder.com. So head on over to my website to purchase original artwork directly from the artist. Also, there are prints available for select images. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com, buy original art, buy prints if that's your jam, if you want 8x10 prints on high quality paper. Also, if you're looking to wear some art, there are shirts available with original artwork by myself. Select faces from The Many Faces are also available in t-shirt form. You go to inspireddisorder.com, you buy original artwork, you buy prints, you buy shirts. You're supporting an artist directly. And if you're the type of person that likes to invest in NFTs, there are also NFTs available for select faces. Go to inspireddisorder.com now. And now let's get back to the show. They also, Dylan she's looking at the procedure, pretty basic. Dylan is like, yeah, I got this. Like, Dylan volunteers to stay behind, that he's going to be the one that's going to stay behind in the security room and do the procedure while Helly and Mark, and presumably Irving as well, get woken up on the outside. And Dylan's willing to do this because he says he was already woken up once and they haven't yet, so it's only fair, which is kind of nice. I really love Dylan. Like, he is, not only is he funny, not only is he creative with all of his theories that are going out, but also, like, seeing him stand up to Milchick and seeing that edge that he has on him. I absolutely love Dylan's character. And him staying there, wanting to be the hero in a lot of ways to get it done is great. And it's not an easy procedure. There are 2 knobs that have to be turned at the same time, which actually made me wonder who was there to do that for Milchick. Like, it's supposedly 2 switches because it requires 2 people, but if Milchick was woken up, Graner wasn't there. Graner was out investigating, going to Gans. Even Cobel wasn't there. Cobel was dressed up in her scrubs. So who knows was there? Maybe there's other people that are there that we just don't know that are there. Maybe in a part-time innies like Miss Casey. But, just as out of the people that we've been introduced to in the show, it's unclear who was the person Milchick called to not only start the OTC, but also to turn it off when he was done. So interesting, because it is a situation where Dylan says he'll be able to do it. But, we'll see. We'll see. They're on opposite sides of the door, and Dylan doesn't necessarily have the largest wingspan, but he volunteers to do it. Cut to Burt is having a retirement, and Irving is there. Obviously, not good news for Irving, but that is the purpose of that party. Milchick notices that Irving is there, and is kind of like definitely taken back. Doesn't make it a big deal necessarily, but definitely notes that that somehow Irving got out of that door and is at the thing. But they play a video, which is similar to the other person that we never saw, that some other person that left Lumon and made a video before they left, unlike Petey. I think her name was like Carol. So not the first person to leave, but apparently part of the retirement is them leaving a goodbye video, as it were. So we watch a video of Burt saying goodbye. Let's play that clip right now.
Hello. This is kind of strange, but a lot of things about this job are. You all know that better than me, I'm guessing. And of course, I don't really know any of you. But the man standing there with you now does. He's worked with you for nearly 7 years, and I hope they've been good years. I don't know what they've been like or what exactly I or he has been doing with you, but I do know how I feel every day when I come from being with you. I come home feeling tired but fulfilled. I feel satisfied. I must like you very much, and though today is my last day with you, I'm certain you will remain with me in spirit in some deep yet completely inaccessible corner of my mind. The impression you've left on me is indelible, though I'm unaware of it on a conscious level, and I will never forget any of you. Even though sitting here right now, I have no recollection of actually ever meeting you, no idea of your names, any of your physical characteristics, or even how many of you there are. Anyway, I just want to say thank you all. And Burt, I see you. Congratulations. Good job, buddy. Bon voyage.
So clearly, like, pretty much a piece of propaganda, because Burt's Audi has no connection to any of the people, but a statement, and even while doing the statement, mentions how, like, I don't know anything about you, I don't know what you look like, but it seems like clearly something that he was told to say in order to make the people feel good about him leaving on some level, even though it's somebody who... It feels as genuine as if you've ever worked in a big corporation, like getting, and it's your like anniversary or whatever, working there, and you get a letter from like the CEO, but it's just a generic letter where they just like filled in your name, and even the signature is just like a stamp or just printed out. Like, it feels so ungenuine. That's what it feels like, this video. Which obviously Irving is not happy with this. Irving's like, is this a punishment? Is this because we all mingled, because the MDR department came here? Is this some kind of punishment? You're killing Burt. Like, you're killing this version of Burt. Like, the innie of Burt, and everything that he exists and the people that are around him will no longer... Like, he is going to be dead to Irving's innie, to all of the innies that work there. Which is something that, like, you don't really see that side of it, especially for somebody who's like Milchick, which Irving calls out Milchick, calling him a smug motherfucker, which there is nothing better than seeing Irving get this edge, standing up to Milchick. Following in the footsteps of Dylan, following in a lot of ways the footsteps of Helly. Just like, okay, I've had enough of this. Like, your opinion as somebody who's not severed has no idea the ramifications of what you're doing, of this person, quote unquote, retiring. Most likely because you're trying to negate any kind of fraternization or collusion between the different departments, right? You're going to get rid of him because, you don't want any more of this connection to happen. And Irving is losing, a romantic love, a connection that he has with Burt. The most affection, the deepest connection he's had with anybody I think Irving said he's been there 7 years. I forget how long Burt said he was there, but they've both been there the longest. I think Irving's got the most seniority in MDR, and then Burt obviously has been there a long time, right? And this is like at least for Irving, the first kind of like real connection he's made with somebody. And now he's losing him. And he calls out Milchick for being a smug motherfucker. I love that. I was like, oh shit. Oh shit. But regardless, Irving is allowed to stay to say goodbye to his friend. They play music, and everybody kind of gives Burt a goodbye handshake. Irving being the last of which to give him a goodbye handshake. And afterwards, Milchick escorts him back to MDR. Irving walking back into MDR, doors closing behind him. First thing he says to everybody, because everybody's there, you know, Mark, Helly, Dylan, they didn't know what happened to him because he just disappeared. First thing Irving says, let's burn this motherfucker to the ground. I don't know if he said motherfucker. Let's burn this place to the ground. It's like first Burt calling Milchick a smug motherfucker, and then him coming in going like, okay, I just experienced the last straw. This is the tipping point has been found. I am 100% on your side. It is like a badass moment. Cut to Mark is drunk. He's outside his Audi, obviously. They don't get alcohol inside, but it's later on that night. Mark is drunk. Obviously, still reeling from what happened the night before, right? Saw somebody die. Had to go to work. And, of course, as Mark does at the end of every night, drinks his whiskey, usually watching TV. He's not watching TV, but he is drunk. And Alexa shows up. Apparently, she forgot her phone there. Mark had found it and gave it to her. And she notices that Mark is drunk, that he's a mess. And she says that he's probably not ready, right? Which is true. I mean, it's true. Mark doesn't want to accept that it's true, as Mark is one to do. He's one to run away from emotional problems. He's one to hide and deny the reality of situations. And to prove it, he does the same thing his innie did, which is an interesting aspect to Reghabi saying that his innie and him are probably on the same page. They're the same person, just living two separate realities. And just as his innie tore up Petey's map to prove to Helly that he wasn't, reeling from that, he's over Petey being lost, leaving, he does the exact same thing, tearing up his wife's picture to prove to Alexa that he's not messed up from it, that he's not, like, we can talk about it all you want if you want. Look at this. And then he tears it up. And of course, she sees right through that, as Helly saw right through him shredding it up. And she leaves. And Mark follows her out to her car, and does not going well for Mark. Clearly he's got problems. Clearly that's a common thing for him to do, to prove that he's not emotionally attached to the situation anymore. But she leaves, and Mark goes back inside to tape, picks the pictures up, which you want to talk about an accurate performance of somebody drunk. Like Mark's character, Mark, the way he breathes sounds like somebody who's drunk. Like, it is authentic, the way he breathes. And I appreciated that. I noticed that. I was like, that is how you would Like so many times actors when they're drunk, they just do the slurring of speech in a bad way that's not believable, and they'll do like, you know, kind of the swaying movements. That's kind of, it's not as authentic, and I appreciated what he brought to that drunk performance. But he's picking up the pieces of his wife's picture that are on the ground, and he's starting to tape them together. And in a moment that reminds, that is reminiscent of the wellness, he starts talking about his wife, the aspects of his wife, of why his wife is extraordinary. And my wife is extraordinary. She was allergic to nutmeg. Every time she sneezed twice. My wife liked other people's dogs, like really in the same cadence, the same way in which those facts were read to Irving in a previous episode. My wife liked other people's dogs. My wife hated cardigans. She thought they were ridiculous. In all the same ways. And it is perfectly fitting that he said those things in that way, because as we see, as he completes taping the picture up, that picture, his wife, is Miss Casey. And it's a beautiful way they end this episode, where you find out that the part-time innie is Mark's late wife, who is apparently not dead. And maybe there's a situation that they're able to sever people who have, maybe there were like severe injuries or brain damage, maybe. Like maybe that is the reason why her innie is so robotic in a lot of ways. Maybe the reason why she's only a part-time innie. So knowing that Miss Casey is Mark's innie, it also raises a bunch of questions or answers questions in, it seems like Cobel is trying to run an experiment on Mark to see if the innies and his innie and outie share deep memories or emotions with things, and that is why she brought that candle in from Mark's basement, and it was lit when Mark went to the wellness check that one time. And maybe the reason why he wanted Miss Casey to do the wellness check just after Mark went to the funeral of Petey on the outside, maybe trying to connect those emotions together to see if there's any emotional connection between the innie and the outie. Right? It kind of makes a lot of the things in what Cobel did with Miss Casey, how she used Miss Casey as a way to, you know, run her own experiments, as it were. So interesting. You know, obviously he doesn't know, his outie doesn't know that Miss Casey is on the inside, but now as the audience, and they did a really good job in this episode when he tore the picture up, you couldn't see who the picture was of while he's taping the picture up. They do a good job to hide the face. And it's not until the very last scene that we see that the picture of his late wife is Miss Casey, who is not dead, but who knows what state of existence she's in. You know, she was in a car accident. I would assume, like, she was taken to a hospital, right? And at the hospital, there's people that work for Lumon. Like, it could be a Lumon hospital for all we know. I mean, Lumon has the building, maybe Lumon, the College of Lumon is a recruitment center. Like, who knows how much of that town is run by Lumon and, like, engineered by Lumon. And maybe one of the applications of the severance process is to restore brain function in some ways. Or maybe it's a bigger experiment on Mark. Like maybe she wasn't, the accident didn't kill her at all. Maybe like they wanted to see how the trauma of losing somebody might affect them, or maybe they wanted Mark for another reason, and they use that to potentially coerce Mark into joining Lumon. Like, it's clear that they are trying to run experiments on this people, right? Who knows if what they do does anything, but there's clearly experiments going on, and knowing that Miss Casey is somebody that Mark's Audi thinks is dead is part of it. And the fact that she's there, it just raises so many more questions. But a huge epiphany at the very end of this, and things are ramping up. Everybody's tired of it. Everybody is sick and tired of Lumon. Everybody inside, all of their innies are really having fires lit under them to really find out and expose what's going on. So we'll see what happens in the next episode, episode 8 of Severance, which is, there's only 2 episodes left. What's for Dinner is episode 8. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.